Good afternoon. As Shane flashes gang signs at the beginning of the podcast. Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast, currently known as Todd Clint's SharePoint podcast for the next, however many till we get this thing figured out. It is episode number 361, recorded live Monday, October 23rd, 2017. I am your host, Todd Clint. And I was thinking we should wait until number 365 to rename this. Like, that should be, I'm just saying. Not that there's any chance that hell will actually be ready to do that by 365, but anyway, I am Todd. You can reach me at Todd Clint, all that kind of stuff. Shane, tell them about yourself.
I feel bad for the people. I feel like that might be the most messed up intro you've done in months. So hopefully they stuck through to hear my glorious voice and know that I am here. And, if you don't watch the show live, you don't really know what you're missing, right? Because in the live video version, you get to see all the shenanigans. You get to see me do things to try and make Todd laugh. It's just good stuff. So
good, clean family fun.
Yeah, and it's always clean because Todd likes to check that box, not explicit on iTunes. So
yes, I'm very, very proud of all that.
Yep.
So this all the stuff you can find us at Todd Clint, at Shane's Cows on Twitter, website toddclint.com. Get the information for this thing, toddclint.com/netcast. It's all there. We're doing it. Production notes. I alluded to this a little bit in the intro. We're deep into renaming this thing. We would have probably gotten farther last week, but we were both busy doing customer work and forgot about it mostly. But we've got a name. We're still working on it. We've got most of our social media things figured out. At least we've got the things purchased. One thing we do want to crowdsource. And we're not necessarily crowdsourcing because we're cool or anything, mostly because we're cheap, but we need cover art for the podcasts. And we've got an idea for it, and it's going to be like a drawing sort of thing. We just don't have any skills, podcasting skills, cover art skills, any of that kind of stuff. And so if you are somebody that is one of the podcast hooligans and have some ability to make those kind of things, give us a shout out, let us know. We know what we want it to look like. We just don't have the ability to make it look like that. So let us know, and we'd be happy to take your work for free. We will give you lots of gratitude. We'll give you plenty of shout outs for at least 2-3 podcasts, maybe. Ooh. We'll see. But yeah, we would like, if we could, to have somebody from the crowd do it. If not, we'll go to Fiverr or something like that and do it from there.
Yeah, because like the fancy Tesla, right? I get the podcasting screen up, and there's a big old cover art that I get to look at for Freakonomics every day, and I want to be able to see our pretty artwork on there one day. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I know that's and ours. The one that I've got now was a temporary one that I made 8 years ago, and it's still rocket science. We need something newer. But we're in the process of doing that. Shane and I are a little less busy this week, so hopefully we'll make some progress on that. On to topics. My co-host, he has to leave. He's got a hard stop at half past the hour, so we need to jump in and hit these. A bunch of things that we wanted to talk about last week that didn't get talked about and all that. One of them was Microsoft has released the Fall Creators Update to Windows 10, not to be confused with the Creators Update to Windows 10 that came out in the spring. And one of the much anticipated changes in that was the triumphant return of placeholders in OneDrive. So for those of you who suffered through Windows 8.1, I believe, OneDrive had this feature where it would show you all of the files in your OneDrive, even ones that weren't synced down to your local device. And then if you click them, it would sync them down, bring them down in real time. It was a great thing. Very poorly executed. It was only an Explorer extension. It caused a lot of problems. So Microsoft pulled it out. There was much lamenting. And so for a couple of years now, people have been begging Microsoft to bring this back. And finally, with the Fall Creators Update in Windows 10, they did that. And they did that with a new OneDrive sync client. And so that's great. You should all update your Windows 10 boxes. It's out into regular distribution now, general release, so you don't have to be in the first ring or targeted release or whatever it is now. But I did want to spend a couple of minutes talking about OneDrive for Business, how the sync client changes things. Because the OneDrive team, specifically Stephen Rose, has done a great job putting things out there. OneDrive, not only is it a legitimate consumer level file sharing thing like Dropbox and all those are, but it's becoming a pretty important enterprise one too. And so I wanted to bring some of those things out. So the first thing that I wanted to link up was an article that Stephen wrote called basically enterprise, OneDrive for business demands on enterprise. This kind of talks about some of the things that happen now with this and some of the things as an enterprise customer you can do with this client. Because remember, this OneDrive client syncs both Office 365 and consumer OneDrive. And so you probably, as an enterprise, if you've moved everything to Office 365, you're going to be using that. So that's a good article. And I wanted to specifically call out that he mentions in there the group policy objects that you can use to control OneDrive for Business, the client. So there's some really important things in here that as enterprise admins, we need to have for this to be a real enterprise solution. And just kind of looking through, I looked through some of the GPOs you can set for the OneDrive client. It's important stuff like delaying when the client comes out, because the OneDrive client updates itself now. It doesn't get updated through Windows Update. It doesn't get updated through Windows. Every day, the OneDrive client goes out to Microsoft and says, hey, you got a new version of me for me? And it comes down. So there's some controls over that. From a security standpoint, they've added GPOs that at the enterprise level, you can say users can't put their OneDrive default directory on something other than a drive that we manage. So if you've got a drive that's being encrypted, you don't want your users putting the OneDrive home on a different drive that's not encrypted, that potentially the data isn't safe. You can prevent them from syncing their OneDrive for pleasure accounts, their consumer OneDrive accounts, if you don't want that stuff on your personal or your business PC. You can set the maximum upload and download thresholds. So if you don't want everybody, sucking up all your business bandwidth, those kind of things. OneDrive has a feature where you can turn on the ability to get files remotely through OneDrive. So through the internet to a machine you're not on, you can shut that off. You can say that this OneDrive client can only sync specific organizations or cannot sync specific organizations. So you can whitelist and blacklist. So all of these things are something that enterprises need to have. And OneDrive is at the point now where enterprises are having these concerns. So I think it's great that they're actually stepping up and doing all this. I'm continuing to be impressed by the OneDrive team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though, right? Because you point out a lot of great reasons to have these controls, and it looks like Microsoft's really thought through it. But one of the things that has always made Dropbox so popular, or any of the other platforms, is they're the path of least resistance, right? Yeah. It was real easy for me, there's like a 400-step process to share this with a customer through IT, or I can put it in Dropbox and send them the link and have it to them right now.
Yeah.
And that was really the success of Dropbox. So then OneDrive, jumped into space, started offering the same type of functionality. They kind of got to that parity point of view, and everybody's like, all right, we can do this OneDrive thing. But now if you go to someone who is going to take OneDrive and lock it down to an inch of its life, which, like the customer that I spent all week with working last week, right? They like to lock things down, and OneDrive will become a path of most resistance. And so does this end up pushing people back to Dropbox or something like that?
Potentially, and you bring up an interesting point in that as IT, we're constantly fighting shadow IT, and that is because as IT, we've made things too tough. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Users don't care about anything. They don't care about security. They don't care about licensing. They don't care about. They just want to get their stuff done and be done with it.
Yep.
So yeah, finding that balance is going to be important. I know a lot of places Dropbox is pretty easy to block. So a lot of companies just do that because there's one thing. And that's one advantage that OneDrive has. It's tougher to block because it's so wormed into Windows that it sneaks out in a bunch of different ways. But yeah, I hope the new external sharing with Office 365 and OneDrive hopefully will edge them more to easier than harder. Dave Aykroyd in the chat room, he's not messing with any of this. He's got some floppy disks, and that's what he's using to share his thing. Nobody's going to, and very secure. Few people can actually read those things.
I mean, that's true, right? I mean, if you gave me the floppy disk with tonight's winning lottery numbers and said you got an hour to get it off of there, I honestly don't think I could. I'm not sure that I have a floppy disk readily available if I had an hour to get it done.
I don't know if we've talked about my hoarding tendencies before. I am mostly sure within 100 meters of my desk, there's a USB floppy drive somewhere.
So I never owned a USB floppy drive. So I'm certain that in that room right there in a box, there is a physical floppy drive. But, could I actually find it, get it all wired up? It ended up needing the power connector that I don't have anymore because I've switched to the SATA ones all the way across, or SATA, whatever you want to call them. So I don't know. It'd be an interesting challenge. Floppy disk in an hour.
Yeah, I would win the lottery. I'm pretty sure I could come up with it.
Then you buy that Tesla.
Finally get that Tesla. But I guess, and another thing that they mentioned in this article was, as you're trying to figure out from an IT standpoint how to control files, because files now in OneDrive can be online only, offline only, or sync on demand or whatever. They have retrofitted the attrib command to handle that. So attrib was the way, 40 years ago, how we would unhide files and hide files and system. Now it's got two new switches, P for pinned and U for unpinned, that you can use to control that stuff. So you could actually write scripts to go through and tag files for stuff. So that's
kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time attrib was updated? 1997?
No.
I mean...
Yes. Yeah, and I wonder if they'll make a PowerShell commandlet that does that, or if they'll leave it in attrib. But that was so they're thinking I had a Twitter conversation with Omar, the I don't remember what he's one of the higher ups, and I'm like, I used to really enjoy making fun of OneDrive. It really made me feel smart and superior, and I can't do it anymore. I can't.
No, I mean, I had a customer today, hopefully a customer. I had a sales call today, and that's what they want to do. They want to take their existing file shares. They want to move the home drives to OneDrives for the customers. They move, the IT drive to an IT site collection, the accounting site collection, and they want to go full in and get rid of the file shares finally. And I'm like, cool, we can do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools for that. In the chat room, Chris Webb mentions that the new OneDrive on demand stuff is breaking some of his backup software, that it doesn't understand this whole on demand and all that. I thought they had worked through most of those problems, so interesting to see that. I'll have to follow up with Chris afterwards.
So you're saying it's a Chris problem?
Yeah,
Chris is doing it wrong. He's like holding his mouth the wrong way.
I've known Chris for a long time. That's certainly the Occam's razor solution to that problem.
But his glamour shot on the chat is it? That's
he's a handsome looking guy in that glamour shot. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he was at Ignite. I'm pretty sure I saw him at Ignite. So.
Sorry, Chris. I just wanted to make fun of you because picking on Todd the whole show gets old. So
it's never gotten old for you in 12 years. It's never lost its luster. So anyway, kind of the long story short, if you're still kind of on the fence about OneDrive, look at the new stuff. There's a bunch of IT controls. It's constantly getting better. Things that you don't like, put it out in OneDrive.uservoice.com. They follow that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is just kind of a fun parable story. I saw on one of the Office blogs that Microsoft is once again updating the emails they send out from Office 365 when you share a site with somebody. So a while back, when you would share a site with somebody, it would CC you on that. So if I'm sharing a site with Shane, it would send Shane the invite and it would CC me on it so that I could see that I shared it with Shane, which was kind of dumb because if I'm using Office 365, once they fixed that, it was being sent from my account, so it was in my sent items and my inbox. So they said, okay, we're not going to CC it anymore. Sounds brilliant. And because it's all back end in the cloud stuff, we didn't have to wait for a patch. We didn't have to wait for a major release, minor release. They just fixed it, and it was great, and it quit CCing. And then another group of people stepped up and said, this is great and all. We have SharePoint in Office 365, but we don't have Exchange in Office 365. And we used to use those CCs on our other mail system, and now you took them away. And Microsoft went, oh, yeah.
So the whole world hasn't migrated yet.
Yes. Craziest thing. So then they went back and they said, okay, so always sending CC is bad. Never sending CC is bad. If only there was a way we could, since we own everything, we will just check and see if the user sharing it has a mailbox in Office 365. If they do, we don't CC it. If they don't, we do CC it. So that was, once, if you're an actual organization that's impacted by this, you'll figure it out immediately what's going on. But I thought that this was a good example of the good and the bad of the cloud. The good of the cloud is once they figure something out, they can fix it immediately. It's in the background. The bad of the cloud is they can change it immediately. And if you're negatively impacted by that, you can't not patch, you can't not whatever. But I mean, they're able to tweak the logic, and so it was good. Overall, it's a happy ending, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And did we talk last week about sharing? I had to do some of that recently, and I don't know if
I don't think we did.
Yeah. Well, because one of the startups I work with, right? They were trying to set up a SharePoint site to share with some of their customers, like an advisory group type of thing. And it was interesting, kind of working through the logic of all of that. When you share with an external entity,
yep.
and it's not a Microsoft account,
Yes. There's some cool features in there.
It's a cool feature, but it's real off-putting to a non-technical audience, right? Because here it was, we sent out this sharing request to someone who's not a technical person.
All right.
They got the sharing request, they click on it, and then kind of without even realizing, all of a sudden it's walking them through creating an account, a Microsoft account with their current email, and they got really confused as to who and when and what and where and why. I don't know. I felt like that wizard process. It's the right process, but need a little more context. It need to stop and say, "Hey, it's cool. He wants to share with you. We just need to do this thing over here and give you a password real quick. Will you help us out?" Needed a little more non-nerd in the process. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and they have recently revamped that within the last 6 months or something, and I thought it was pretty good. But again, I see it through my nerd-colored glasses. Interesting. Yeah, I would be interested, like if I tried to share something with my mom. Of course, she's got a Microsoft account though. Yeah.
And that was one of the challenges I was having testing it for these guys. Was I've got 15 emails. They're all Microsoft accounts at this point. I'm like,
every one of them. Some are both work and home. That weird thing. Yeah.
And it's interesting also the way Azure AD, when you're like typing in, I started typing Cincy Shane. It auto-corrected with my Outlook.com account into his tenant that had never been there before. I mean, like it was, he typed it yesterday. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and that's because it's all one big directory in the background now. All of that stuff, it's
Yeah, it's we keep talking about, right? Azure Active Directory. The sooner you can get into it, and the sooner, if you're a type of person who writes third-party tools that need auth, that you can work with Azure AD, the better your life is going to be. That's how Microsoft's going to win the cloud, is Azure AD, and you just need to accept it and go get on board.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked last week about sharing inside of Teams and all that, and it's the same kind of deal. It would the entire Microsoft authenticating world, it could see right there, and just it knew.
Mind blown, especially when you work with some like the people we were talking about earlier today, right? We're working with an older Azure AD or an older on-prem AD, and that darn thing barely works.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then to think that Azure AD's got these millions, if not a billion objects at this point, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. It just tells you how bad we were at AD for the last 15 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah. So for those of you that weren't listening in on Shane and I's conversation earlier today, we were working on a customer that I'm working with, and they've got an AD that's about 10 years old. And, they probably did things that we thought were appropriate 10 years ago that just are not good these days. And so they're going to have to upgrade and make these changes. And yeah. So let's do a couple more of the Microsoft things. We're going more quickly than I thought we were going to. So last week, Microsoft announced that they are making a Cortana powered speaker. There were very few surprise faces when that came out. Harmon Kardon, the well-known, well-respected home audio company, is making it, and it's called the Invoke. To stay with Inspire and all those other things that Ignite that Microsoft's doing. And so there are a whole bunch of reviews around there. I think in the show notes I'll have the reviews from Paul Thurrott's site. I picked his for a couple of reasons. Number one, Paul is a friend of mine. Number two, because his was really the only review that I could find that was positive on the thing. And so it wasn't the first one I read. I read probably 3, and his was like the 4th one that I read. And I'm like, Paul found something good to say about this. I'll be damned. And Paul doesn't say good things about stuff very often, so that was equally surprising. But essentially, this is the Microsoft version of the Amazon home speaker. For those of you that have an Amazon home speaker that looks like this little guy right here, or taller, or maybe has a screen on it, we will likely be saying her name in the next couple of minutes. So you're going to want to hit the little microphone button on her, and so she ignores us. Okay, everybody hit the button? All right.
I did.
Okay. So this is essentially Microsoft's answer to the Amazon Echo, the Alexa, or the Google Home, or any of those things. And I mean, there's no differentiator. Like when the Echo came out, 2 years ago or whatever, it was mind blowing because it did this crazy thing that nobody'd ever seen before. The Google Home kind of snuck out, like nobody really noticed, but they wired it in. And this one comes out and it doesn't add anything that I think the other two don't have. Like I've got a bunch of Echoes all over the house. I can't think of any reason why I would swap any of them out for this.
No, it's an interesting dilemma, right? Usually, you don't want to be playing catch up here. You want to be playing leapfrog, and they forgot the leaping of the frog.
And so exactly the problem. And so I have two responses to that. Number one is this eerily is familiar to the Windows Phone debacle of, whatever. There were already great phones out there. Windows or Microsoft dropped out Windows Phone that kept up but never really grabbed anybody. And then we see how that turned out. And the other thing is Microsoft in the last, 3 or 4 years has embraced this MVP, minimum viable product thing. And I'm finding myself more and more irritated by that. And I think this is another victim of that they said, okay, we need to get this smart speaker out there with Cortana. It's all cloud powered. So once we get the hardware correct, we can add whatever we need to. We just need to get that minimum viable product out there, get it in people's houses, and we'll just keep updating it on the back end. But it's killing them on stuff like this because it comes out and everybody's like, I've already got this with my Echo in my home. Why am I going to spend $200 on this Harman Kardon thing? And I think it's just going to fail to launch.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense, right? And you know what happened, though? Some executive was sitting there saying, wait a minute. So Amazon has a speaker in people's homes that hear every word they say and get access to that data? Why in the heck don't we have this? Bobby, go build this right now, right? And they forgot the whole part of the get people to actually buy it to be able to actually listen in on them. They're not like the NSA who can put it in my microwave. So.
Yeah, any of that stuff. So as you can imagine, this Harmon Kardon Invoke leverages Cortana and bolts into all the Cortana-y things. So you can have Cortana on your iPhone or your Android or obviously your Windows Phone or Windows. It all goes together. Dave Ackroyd in the chat room brings up an interesting thing. I don't know what the average usage looks like for, the Amazon Echoes. I would guess the vast majority of the way my house uses it is for music. And that works out well because we buy most of our music from Amazon MP3 and have for years, long before the Echo even existed. And so that worked out really well. Microsoft just a couple of months ago announced that they were killing Groove and killing all that. And then they come out with a speaker that people are used to using for music. And so, I mean, it's going to bolt into Spotify or whatever, but it seems like they could have done that better.
Yeah, well, and keeping on the trend of doing things better, our dear friends at Apple, right? We got the iPhone 8. They've been out for just over a month now, right? I think September 21st was about the time.
Yeah. Do you have one? Did you get it?
No, I didn't buy an iPhone 8, and apparently no one is. So just this morning, I got an email from Apple, and they said, hey, guess what? The holiday prices, we're going to lower the base model iPhone 8 because people want it so bad. We're going to go from $599 to $399. That is not how economics works in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So they're doing almost I don't know, what is that, 40% price cut, I guess? Math is not...
They're going from 600 to 400? That's 33% price cut.
Darn it. But yeah, so I mean, they're cutting the price, and they think it's a positive. The stock is down a couple percent on the news. And so I've been looking at it from the stock point of view. I don't own any Apple stock, so I can say whatever I want about it.
I actually do. I own Apple stock, but no Apple devices. You own Apple devices, but no Apple stock.
There you go. But it's been interesting. So some of the bulls are saying, well, it's because there's all this pent-up demand for the iPhone X, right? They're expecting that no one's buying the 8 because everyone wants the X, right? Good old. But the other half of us say, all of us have got iPhones, right? Everyone, half the world's got an iPhone at this point. I mean, something absurd like that. Half the world that has a smartphone has an iPhone. And, the 7, good. We got some updates. There was a reason to buy 7. I bought a 7 Plus myself. Yeah. But the 7 Plus to 8 Plus, my $800 doesn't give me anything. It doesn't do anything of value that is new.
Yeah.
And the other problem they have is, they shoved, which they always have done in the past, it's not new, but they shoved iOS 11 down on us, and 11 has made my iPhone 7 Plus work less well. So now I'm kind of a pissed off customer, for lack of a better way of putting it. Yeah. So why would I run out and buy another $1,000 phone? It probably works better, but I clearly know that's their goal, and I clearly am not going to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, the planned obsolescence is tough to swallow when everything was working great before that. Yeah, I have been able to sit back and watch this one and not and just enjoy it. But I agree that it's tough, and we were talking before the show. Smartphones are at this weird spot now where they probably this generation or even the previous generation did everything that most people needed, and so it's tough to get them to spend the next $800. And the 10 is going to cost what, $1,000, something like that. There's going to be a version of the iPhone 10 that costs $1,000.
Yeah,
I've made some gigantically stupid tech purchases in my day. I mean, just monumentally dumb things. I've never spent anywhere near $1,000 on a cell phone, especially when I'm replacing one that works perfectly fine.
Yeah, in the whole iPhone 6 Plus to iPhone 7 Plus, I got that second the lens, right? I've got a zoomed lens, and that was really the only difference between the two. And so this time around, they don't even have that to offer me, and I don't know. So if you're a stockholder, I guess you can vote with your dollars, but some people say it's going to boom as soon as the 10. Apparently, I'm not allowed to say X. That's a dirty word. That's what I think of that. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. There's been a lot of stuff made about it. So we just got a couple minutes left. Let's move on to the shameless self-promotion. We have something. So normally I do this in order, but I'm going to skip out order because we got an important thing and I don't want to miss it before we leave. So for the last a month or two, Shane and I have been talking about the SharePoint North America conference. You can find out about that at sharepointna.com. That's going to be May 21st through 23rd. And Shane and I have talked about how it's going to be the SharePoint event for 2018. I mean, there will be an Inspire or an Ignite or whatever. Yeah, and they'll talk about SharePoint stuff there. But this is the May event. This is the SharePoint team's shining moment, and they've chosen to do it at the SharePoint NA conference. And we were going to do whatever it took to be there. Well, we can say now that we know we're going to be there. We are doing
that stuff.
Yes, we're doing a workshop. We're doing a SharePoint Administrator Day Camp the Thursday after the conference. So it looks like the 24th of May. And it's going to be a day-long workshop with just Shane and I, and we're going to be talking about all the administrative stuff that you need to know, on-prem administration, cloud administration, how to get the two talking together, all those kind of things. We're going to be talking about at that conference.
I'm very excited, right? I'm happy we don't have to tell people what we did to get able to be there.
Yes, I'm still recovering emotionally from that.
But it's official. It's on their website. There's no takesy backsies, right?
Yep.
The Todd and Shane show will return to Vegas in May of 2018.
I've taken screenshots of it. It's official. So you can go out to SharePointNA.com and sign up for the conference, and you can already reserve your hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff. Go to the workshops page, read about that. If you have any questions about what we're going to talk about, let either one of us know. But that's the big news. We're super excited that we are fortunate enough to be involved in that. It's going to be a big show. Very excited.
I am. I'm looking forward to it. Right, and we've won best speakers at so many SharePoint events. I feel we need to really work out a little bit. And be like, oh, here we come, people. We want to win top of show. So pretty excited.
Yeah, and on that, so Jason and I did a session at Ignite this year, and I can't remember where it was, but we were like the fourth highest rated speakers. I forget. Jason's looked up. I'm afraid to look at scores this anymore because they just make me I'm always afraid. But I'm noticing that you and I got great scores together. Jason and I get great scores together. There's some common. Boy, I just can't quite put it together. But
that's interesting. So
I remember, do well in Vegas.
The one time that I had the number one for the entire SharePoint show was the year that I spoke with someone different. It wasn't top 4. I don't even know what top 4 means, right? It was number 1. That was with me and another speaker. So I'm with you. There's something here.
So I pulled you up is what I'm hearing. I've improved you. Just being around me has made you a better speaker. That's what I'm hearing.
Wait, I went from 1 to 4. That's better. So 4 is better than 1. Okay, got it.
You went to Kentucky school. This is easy to sell. And then, so I'm going to be speaking at the Thrive Conference in Slovenia, November 8th and 9th, thriveconf.com. I'm going to be talking about OneDrive. I'm going to be talking about Azure AD or PowerShell. I forget what my other session is. But I'm going to be there. So go to thriveconf.com and sign up with that. And then, Shane, tell them what you're going to be doing in December.
Yeah, December 5th at 6:30 p.m., I'll be speaking at the Southern California PowerShell Users Group, teaching the PowerShelly people about how to do SharePoint PowerShelly stuff. Once again, it's the type of thing that makes people like Jeffrey Snover have a heart attack, so don't tell him. And we'll just keep it a secret between us.
All right. So it is 4:30 my time, 5:30 your time. Shane needs to get out. So thanks, everybody. Chat room, I'm going to stick around for a while. Shane, go take care of your stuff, and we will see you guys next week.
There you go. See ya.
Get out of here.